Captain Jin Woo stood at the observation window of Earth's largest orbital station, watching the stars twinkle in the darkness. He had been in space for 3 years now, ever since humanity had discovered they were not alone in the universe. That discovery had changed everything. 3 years ago, the aliens had arrived. Not with violence or drama, but with curiosity and caution. They called themselves the Galactic Coalition, a union of 47 different species from across the galaxy. They had been peaceful neighbors for thousands of years, sharing technology and knowledge. When they found Earth, they were excited at first. Another intelligent species to join their family. But then they studied Earth more closely. They saw the storms that could destroy cities. They measured the gravity that was twice as strong as most of their homeworlds. They watched predators hunt prey in brutal efficiency. They saw humans eating meat, fighting wars, and surviving conditions that would kill most coalition species within hours. Earth was what they called a Class 12 death world, one of the most dangerous planets known to support intelligent life. The coalition decided that humans were too primitive, too violent, and too unpredictable for full membership. Earth would remain on probation. Humanity could trade with them and learn from them, but could not vote in coalition matters or receive military technology. Most humans were angry about this decision, but Jinwoo understood it. The aliens were afraid of them. Now, as Jinwoo sipped his coffee and prepared for another routine day, an alert flashed on his console. An unscheduled ship was approaching the station. The identification codes marked it as a coalition diplomatic vessel, priority urgent. Jinwoo frowned. The coalition never sent urgent diplomatic missions to Earth. 20 minutes later, Jinwoo stood in the docking bay as the airlock opened. What emerged made him stop breathing for a moment. The alien was tall, perhaps 7 feet, with a body that looked like a walking stick insect. Its exoskeleton was a pale green color, and its multiple arms trembled slightly. But what caught Jinwoo's attention were the creature's large compound eyes. They showed pure fear. "I am Ambassador Thelrax of the Galactic Coalition," the alien said, through its translation device. Its voice was high and clicking, but the device made it sound almost human. "I come with an urgent request for your world." Jinwoo led the ambassador to a private conference room. Thelrax moved slowly, its legs shaking. Jinwoo had met coalition members before. They were always calm, logical, and confident. This one looked like it was barely holding itself together. "What happened?" Jinwoo asked, offering the alien a seat. Thelrax collapsed into it gratefully. "We are being destroyed," Thelrax said simply. "A species we never encountered before has emerged from the far side of the galaxy. They call themselves the Vrakith Empire. They do not negotiate. They do not accept surrender. They simply conquer and destroy everything in their path." The ambassador pulled up holographic images. Jinwoo watched in horror as worlds burned. Massive fleets of dark ships overwhelmed defensive stations. Cities crumbled under orbital bombardment. 12 of our worlds have gone silent in the past 4 months, Thelrax continued. Our military forces cannot stop them. Every battle we fight, we lose. Every defensive position we establish, they break through. We have never faced anything like this before. Jinwoo studied the images carefully. "Your technology looks more advanced than theirs. Why can't you win?" Thelrax made a sound that the translator rendered as a bitter laugh. "Technology is not enough. The Vrakith know how to wage war, real war. They are predators, Captain, like humans. My people evolved on a peaceful world where the deadliest creature was something like your rabbit. We have not fought a real war in over 800 years. We have forgotten how." "Then why come to us?" Jinwoo asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. "Because you remember," Thelrax said quietly. "Your people fight wars against each other even now. You hunt for sport. You train your children in combat. You come from a world that tries to kill you every day, and you survive. The Coalition High Command debated for weeks, but we have no choice. We need soldiers who understand warfare. We need predators who can fight predators. We need Deathworlders." Jinwoo felt a strange mix of emotions. For 3 years, the Coalition had treated humanity like dangerous children, too primitive to join their civilized society. Now they were begging for that same primitive violence to save them. I need to speak with my superiors, Jinwoo said. This is not a decision I can make alone. I understand, Thelrak said. But please, Captain, understand our desperation. If the Vrakkith continue at their current pace, they will reach our core worlds within 6 months. Billions will die. We are asking you to save us from extinction. Jinwoo left Thelrax in the conference room and made his way to the communication center. He opened a secure channel to Earth Defense Command. Within minutes, Admiral Hyjin's face appeared on the screen. She was a stern woman in her 50s, with short gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Jinwoo explained the situation quickly. As he spoke, he watched Hyejin's expression change from curiosity to anger to something else entirely. They called us too primitive, Hyejin said when he finished. They kept us isolated like we were animals in a zoo, and now they want us to die for them? Yes, Admiral, Jinwoo said carefully. But the ambassador is genuinely terrified. The images he showed me, the Vrakkith are slaughtering millions. If we refuse, we might be watching the extinction of 47 species. Hyejin was quiet for a long moment. Jinwoo could see her thinking, weighing options. Finally, she spoke. Tell the ambassador we will help, she said, but not because we owe them anything. We help because it is the right thing to do. That is what separates us from monsters. We protect those who cannot protect themselves, even if they once looked down on us. She paused, and a fierce smile crossed her face. And Jinwoo? Tell him that if they want Deathworlders, we will show them exactly what Earth breeds. They are about to learn why humanity survived on a Class 12 Deathworld. Call up our volunteer forces, start the mobilization. The Coalition wanted to keep humanity at arm's length because they were afraid of what we could do. Her smile grew wider. Now they are going to see what happens when you wake up a sleeping predator. Jinwoo returned to the conference room where Thelrax waited. The ambassador looked up hopefully as he entered. Earth will help you, Jinwoo said. We will send our soldiers to fight alongside the Coalition forces. Thelrax's entire body seemed to sag with relief. Thank you, Captain. Thank you. You may have just saved my entire species. Don't thank me yet, Jinwoo said quietly. You asked for Deathworlders. You're about to see what that really means. I hope you are ready for it. As Thelrax left the station, Jinwoo looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, an enemy was destroying everything in its path. But they had never encountered humanity before. They had never fought an enemy that came from a world that tried to kill them every single day. They had never faced predators who fought not just for survival, but for principle. Jinwoo smiled grimly. The Vrakkith Empire was about to learn a very hard lesson. Earth was coming. And when a death world goes to war, the galaxy shakes. Sergeant Tae Yang had been expecting the call. When the government announced that volunteers were needed for an off-world military operation, he had signed up within the first hour. He was a career soldier, 10 years in the Republic of Korea Marine Corps, with 3 combat tours and peacekeeping operations. This was different, though. This was war against an alien empire that was destroying entire civilizations. Now he stood on the parade ground at the Coalition staging area, a massive space station orbiting a moon in neutral territory. Around him, his unit prepared equipment and ran drills. The humans called themselves the Korean Expeditionary Force, though soldiers from dozens of nations had joined them. Tai Yang commanded a mixed unit of Marines, Special Operations veterans, and fresh volunteers. Among them was Private Yuna, a combat medic who looked barely old enough to be in uniform but had scored the highest marks in her training class. The Coalition forces watched the humans with obvious unease. Most of the aliens were tall and thin, their bodies adapted to low-gravity worlds. They wore powered armor that did most of the physical work for them. Their weapons were sleek energy rifles that hummed with power. Everything about them seemed advanced and sophisticated. The humans looked primitive by comparison. They wore simple combat armor that barely covered vital areas. They carried weapons that fired metal projectiles using chemical explosives. They moved in a way that made the aliens uncomfortable, like predators stalking prey. And they were loud. The humans laughed, joked, and sang songs even as they prepared for war. A Coalition officer approached Ta Yang. She was an avian species, covered in pale blue feathers with large eyes that blinked sideways. Her translator identified her as Liaison Officer Pixren. "Sergeant Tai Yang," she said, her voice nervous. "I have been assigned to coordinate with your unit. I must inform you that joint training exercises will begin tomorrow. The Coalition High Command wants to assess human capabilities before deploying you to active combat zones." "Understood," Ta Yang said. "My troops are ready." Pixren looked at the humans running drills. Her feathers ruffled in what Tai Yang had learned was a sign of distress. "If I may ask, Sergeant, why are your soldiers engaging in hand-to-hand combat training? Surely modern warfare does not require such primitive skills?" Ta Yang smiled. "Officer Pixren, I hope you never have to find out why we train for close combat, but if you do find out, you will be very glad we are on your side." The next day, the joint exercises began. Coalition forces assembled on a training ground designed to simulate urban warfare. Tai Yang's unit was assigned to defend a sector against a simulated enemy attack. The Coalition troops watched curiously as the humans spread out, taking positions in buildings and behind cover. "They move like hunters," one alien soldier whispered to another. "Look at how they use the terrain." The simulation began. Holographic enemy forces appeared, advancing on the human positions. Tai Yang's unit responded instantly. Precise fire erupted from multiple angles. The humans used cover effectively, moved in coordinated teams, and communicated with hand signals and short radio bursts. Within minutes, the simulated enemy forces were destroyed. The Coalition officers reviewed the results with obvious surprise. "Your unit had 0 casualties and eliminated all threats in under 6 minutes, one of them said. "That is impressive." Most Coalition units take 15 minutes and suffer at least 30% casualties in this scenario. "With respect," Tai Yang said, "this scenario is too easy. The enemy advanced in straight lines with no tactical coordination. Real enemies do not fight like that." The Coalition officer looked offended. "This simulation is based on standard military doctrine that has been refined over centuries. Standard doctrine for species that forgot how to fight real wars," Tai Yang said bluntly. "The Vrakith will not follow your standard doctrine. They are predators. They will use ambush, terrain, and psychological warfare. Your simulations prepare you to fight other Coalition species, not actual warriors." That night, the Coalition observers filed reports about the human forces. The reports were full of concern. The humans slept only 4 hours instead of the required 8. They consumed massive amounts of food, including cooked meat that horrified many species. They engaged in aggressive physical training that looked like combat. They told stories about previous wars with evident pride. Everything about them screamed danger. Private Yuna sat with Pixren in the station's common area, trying to ease the aliens' fears. "We are not monsters," Yuna said gently. "We are just adapted to survive on a harsh world. That harshness made us strong." "But you eat dead animals," Pixren said, her translator conveying clear disgust. "And you train by hurting each other. And you seem to enjoy the thought of combat. How can you be so violent?" Yuna thought about how to explain. "My grandmother lived through a war on Earth. She told me stories about surviving when everything around her was destroyed. She taught me that strength is not about wanting to fight. It is about being able to fight when you must. Humans have fought each other for thousands of years, yes. But we also protect each other. We die for strangers. We sacrifice ourselves for principles. Our violence is not cruelty. It is capacity. We can be violent when we need to be, but we choose not to be when we do not need to be." Before Pixren could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Tai Yang's radio crackled to life. "All units to defensive positions. Vrakith scouting party detected, approaching the station." The Coalition forces scrambled in panic. Orders were shouted in a dozen languages. Soldiers rushed to their positions, many fumbling with their weapons. It was chaos. Tai Yang's unit moved differently. They were calm, efficient, and deadly serious. Within 90 seconds, every human soldier was in position, weapons ready, eyes scanning for targets. Ta Yang stood in the command center, watching the tactical displays. "Enemy ships approaching from Sector 7, an alien officer reported, his voice shaking. 3 light cruisers. They are launching boarding pods. All coalition forces, fall back to secondary positions, the station commander ordered. Prepare to abandon forward sections. Tae Yang grabbed his radio. Human forces, hold the forward sections. Do not fall back. Make them pay for every meter. The Vrikith boarding pods slammed into the station's outer hull. Armored warriors poured out, each one massive and heavily armed. They were reptilian creatures, 7 feet tall with thick scales and savage claws. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never met real resistance. They met it now. Corporal Minho and his fire team held the first corridor. As the Vrikith warriors charged forward, Minho's team opened fire. The projectile weapons roared, and the narrow corridor became a killing zone. 3 Vrikith went down in the first seconds. The others tried to advance but were met with grenades and sustained fire. 1 Vrikith warrior made it through, roaring with rage. It was huge, wielding a weapon that looked like a cross between an axe and a rifle. Minho dropped his gun and drew his combat knife. The alien swung its weapon. Minho ducked, moved inside its reach, and drove the knife up through a gap in its armor. The Vrikith gurgled and fell. In another section, Yuna was pulling wounded coalition soldiers to safety. Energy fire zipped past her head, but she did not stop. A Vrikith warrior spotted her and charged. She grabbed a fallen rifle and fired from the hip, 3 shots that dropped the alien in its tracks. Then she went back to dragging the wounded to cover. Ta Yang coordinated the defense from a position that let him see 3 corridors. His rifle barked steadily, each shot finding a target. Sniper Team, collapse Sector 4. Fire Team 2, advance to Junction 9 and secure our flank. Medical Team, we have wounded at Checkpoint 3. The battle lasted 20 minutes. When it was over, the Vrikith retreated to their ships and jumped away. Coalition damage control teams moved through the station, assessing the destruction. They found the forward sections still in human hands. 15 Vrikith warriors dead. 3 human soldiers killed, 7 wounded. Pixarin found Yuna treating a wounded alien soldier. The medic's uniform was covered in blood, both red human blood and the blue blood of coalition species. She worked with steady hands, injecting medicine and sealing wounds. "You saved my cousin," Pixarin said quietly, looking at the wounded soldier. "He would have died if you had not pulled him from the corridor." Yuna looked up, exhausted but smiling. "That is what we do. We protect each other." That night, the coalition observers filed new reports. The tone was very different. The humans had faced the Vrikith directly and won. They had held positions that coalition forces would have abandoned. They had fought with weapons that seemed primitive but proved devastatingly effective. And they had done it without fear, without hesitation, and without complaint. Admiral Hai Jin received the reports back on Earth. She read them carefully, then sent a message to the Coalition High Command. It was short and simple. "You have seen us in a small engagement. You have not yet seen what Earth can really do. When you deploy us to active combat, you will understand why we survived on a death world. The Vrikith think they are the apex predators of this galaxy. They are about to meet Earth's children, and we are going to teach them what real predators can do." The emergency meeting of Coalition High Command took place on a space station above the planet Tolver Prime. The planet below held 4 billion civilians, mostly families with young children. It was one of the oldest coalition worlds, a symbol of peace and prosperity. Intelligence had confirmed that the Vrikith Empire was preparing a massive assault. The attack would come in 3 days. Captain Subin sat at the tactical planning table, the only human among 24 alien military officers. She had been promoted rapidly after demonstrating an unusual talent for strategy. Now she listened as coalition generals debated their options. "We must evacuate the planet," one general said. His species looked like a floating jellyfish in a containment suit. "The Vrikith fleet is too large. We cannot hold against it." "Evacuation will take weeks," another officer protested. "We have 3 days. Billions will die." "Then we must negotiate," a third voice said. "Perhaps if we offer them the planet peacefully, they will spare the civilians." Subin had been quiet until now, but this was too much. They will not spare anyone. The Vrakkith do not take prisoners. They do not show mercy. Every world they have taken, they have killed every living thing on it. Evacuation and negotiation are both fantasies. There is only one option. We hold the line. The alien officers turned to look at her. Most seemed offended that a human would speak so bluntly. With respect, Captain, the jellyfish general said coldly, humans have been part of this conflict for less than a month. The coalition has been fighting the Vrakkith for 4 months. We understand the enemy better than you do. Do you? Subin asked. Because from what I have seen, you have lost every single engagement. You retreat before contact. You abandon positions without fighting. You treat warfare like a negotiation. The Vrakkith treat warfare like hunting. They are predators, and they see you as prey. Then what would you suggest? Another officer asked sarcastically. Subin stood and pulled up a holographic map of Tolvar Prime. The Vrakkith overwhelm orbital defenses with superior numbers. They will do the same here. Fighting in space is their strength. So we do not fight in space. We make them come to the surface. We fight them in the cities, in the buildings, in the streets. Urban warfare, house by house, room by room. The kind of fighting where numbers matter less than skill. That is barbaric, the jellyfish general said. You would turn our cities into war zones? The Vrakkith will turn them into graveyards, Subin said flatly. At least my way, some people survive. And maybe, just maybe, we hurt the Vrakkith badly enough that they think twice about the next attack. The room erupted in argument. Half the officers thought the plan was insane. The other half had no better ideas. Finally, Admiral Hyajin's voice came through the communication system. The plan is approved, she said. Captain Subin has authorization to coordinate the defense. Coalition forces will support as needed. We deploy in 12 hours. 12,000 human soldiers landed on Tolvar Prime. Sergeant Tae Yang's unit took position in the capital city's industrial sector, a maze of factories, warehouses, and narrow streets. Private Yuna set up field hospitals in reinforced bunkers, training local civilian volunteers to assist with casualties. Sniper Jae Sung climbed to the top of a damaged tower, setting up her rifle with clear sight lines across 6 city blocks. The coalition civilians watched the humans with mixed fear and hope. These strange aliens from the Deathworld Earth were their only chance of survival. Some brought food and water to the soldiers. Others simply watched as the humans prepared defenses with frightening efficiency. They are building traps everywhere, one civilian said to his friend. Look, they are rigging entire buildings to collapse. They are turning the city into a fortress, his friend replied. Or a tomb. I am not sure which. On the 3rd day, the Vrakkith fleet arrived. Hundreds of ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, filling the space around Tolvar Prime. The Coalition Defense Fleet engaged them immediately. The battle in orbit lasted 4 hours. The Coalition fleet was destroyed. Vrakkith landing ships began their descent. Tai Yang stood on a rooftop, watching the sky fill with enemy vessels. His radio crackled with reports as hundreds of thousands of Vrakkith warriors landed across the city. The numbers were overwhelming. For every human soldier, there were 30 Vrakkith warriors. All units, this is command. Admiral Hyajin's voice came through clearly. The orbital battle is lost. You are now on your own. Hold as long as you can. Make them pay for every meter. Show them what Earth's children can do. Understood, Tae Yang replied. He switched to his unit frequency. Everyone heard that. We are alone down here. The Vrakkith think they have already won. They think they are hunting frightened prey. Let us show them what happens when prey fights back. The first Vrakkith forces entered the industrial sector at dawn. They moved in massive formations expecting little resistance. What they found was hell. Mines detonated under their feet. Buildings collapsed on their formations. Sniper fire picked off officers and heavy weapons specialists. When they tried to advance down streets, they ran into prepared defensive positions where human soldiers poured fire into them from multiple directions. The Vrakkith had superior numbers, but in the narrow streets and ruined buildings, numbers became a weakness. They got in each other's way. Corporal Minho led a close-quarters combat team through the underground utility tunnels. They emerged behind Vrakkith positions, hitting them from unexpected angles and disappearing before the enemy could respond. It was guerrilla warfare at its finest, and the humans were masters of it. Yuna's field hospital was in constant operation. Wounded soldiers came in bleeding and broken. She worked without stopping, her hands steady even as artillery fire shook the building. Coalition civilian volunteers helped her, learning quickly how to treat injuries. One young alien, a boy barely old enough to work, asked her how she stayed so calm. "I am terrified," Yuna admitted, injecting pain medication into a wounded Marine. "But my fear does not matter. What matters is that this soldier survives. Fear is just a feeling. It does not control me." Sniper Jae-sung eliminated 17 Vracath officers in the first day. She moved positions constantly, never firing more than 3 shots before relocating. The Vracath tried to find her, but she was a ghost. She understood something they did not. Patience is a weapon. She could wait for hours for the perfect shot, completely still, completely silent. Captain Subin coordinated the defense from a command bunker, moving units to plug gaps in the line and reinforcing positions under heavy pressure. She used tactics the Vracath had never encountered: false retreats that lured them into ambushes, diversionary attacks that drew forces away from key positions, and psychological warfare that made them doubt their own intelligence. The Vracath commanders were frustrated. They had overwhelming numerical superiority, but they could not break through. Every street was a battle. Every building was a fortress. The humans fought with a ferocity that shocked them. Wounded humans who should have been out of the fight kept fighting. Exhausted humans who should have collapsed kept standing. And always, the humans made them pay in blood for every advance. On the second day, a Vracath assault force broke through to one of Yuna's field hospitals. 20 warriors, heavily armed, smashed through the defenses. Yuna was treating a wounded coalition soldier when they entered. She grabbed a rifle from a fallen guard and opened fire. Her first shots were wild, but she adjusted quickly. 2 Vracath went down. The others returned fire, and energy bolts smashed into the walls around her. A Vracath warrior charged at her, roaring. Yuna stood her ground and fired. The warrior fell 3 meters from her. She kept firing until her rifle clicked empty, then grabbed another weapon. By the time reinforcements arrived, 8 Vracath were dead, and Yuna was still standing, still protecting her patients. "You are supposed to be a medic," Tae-yang said when he arrived with his team to secure the hospital. He looked at the dead Vracath with amazement. "I am a medic," Yuna said calmly, reloading her weapon. "Which means I protect the wounded, by any means necessary." On the third day, the Vracath tried a massive assault, throwing everything they had at the human positions. Thousands of warriors attacked simultaneously. The human lines bent but did not break. Tae-yang's unit ran out of ammunition and fought with knives and improvised weapons. Min-ho's team collapsed an entire city block on advancing enemies. Jae-sung fired until her rifle barrel glowed red from heat. The Vracath had never encountered anything like this. These humans should have broken. They should have run. They had taken horrific casualties. They were exhausted, wounded, and outnumbered. But they kept fighting. They kept standing. They would not break. On the evening of the third day, something changed in the Vracath forces. Their attacks became less coordinated. Their warriors showed hesitation. Reports filtered back to their command ships. The humans were destroying them. For every human that fell, 5 Vracath died. The city was a meat grinder, and the humans controlled the grinder. That night, the Vracath fleet withdrew from orbit. Their landing forces retreated to extraction points. It was not a tactical withdrawal. It was a retreat. They had broken against the human defense. As dawn broke on the 4th day, coalition relief forces arrived to find the city still in human hands. Buildings were destroyed. Streets were cratered. Fires burned everywhere. But the humans still stood, still ready to fight if needed. 4,000 human soldiers had died defending Tolvar Prime. 8,000 were wounded. But 4 billion civilians were alive. The Vracath had lost 60% of their attacking force, over 100,000 warriors. Ambassador Thelrax arrived with the relief forces. He walked through the ruined streets, seeing human soldiers collapsed from exhaustion, medics treating the wounded, and engineers beginning repairs. He found Sergeant Tae Yang sitting on a pile of rubble, drinking water from a canteen. "You held," Thelrak said quietly. "Against impossible odds, you held?" Tae Yang looked up at him with tired eyes. "We did what we came here to do. We protected those who could not protect themselves." Thelrax's translator could not convey the emotion he felt, but tears ran down his insectoid face. For the first time in Coalition history, an ambassador wept openly, not from sadness, but from witnessing something his people had thought impossible: ordinary soldiers standing against overwhelming force and refusing to break. He finally understood why humans called Earth a death world. It had made them into something the galaxy had never seen before. It had made them into warriors who fought not for glory or conquest, but for principle. It had made them into heroes. News of the victory at Tolver Prime spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The primitive humans from Earth had achieved what no coalition force could manage. They had made the Vrakith Empire bleed. They had made the unstoppable enemy stop. Overnight, everything changed. The Coalition High Command met in emergency session. For hours, they debated. Some argued that humans were too dangerous to give real authority. Others pointed out that humans were the only reason billions of civilians were still alive. Finally, they reached a decision that would have been unthinkable a month earlier. They gave humanity full operational command of the war effort. Admiral Heejin received the authorization from her command ship orbiting Earth. She read it twice to make sure she understood correctly. The Coalition was not just asking for help anymore. They were surrendering control of their entire military to a species they had considered too primitive for membership just months ago. She called her senior officers to the briefing room. Captain Jin Woo, Captain Su Bin, and Strike Commander Dong Hyun assembled around the holographic display. Dong Hyun was new to the command staff, a special operations veteran who had earned his reputation in missions nobody else wanted to attempt. "We have operational command," Heejin said without preamble. "The Coalition wants us to plan and execute the counteroffensive. They are scared, desperate, and they have finally realized that their way of fighting does not work. So we do this our way. Humanity's way." Su Bin pulled up tactical maps. The Vrakith control 17 star systems now. Their supply lines are stretched across hundreds of light years. Intelligence suggests their central command is somewhere in the conquered territories, coordinating all operations. If we can find it and destroy it, we can decapitate their command structure. "We also have intelligence about Coalition prisoners," Dong Hyun added. "The Vrakith are holding captured civilians and soldiers on a prison world in the Keltar system. Initial estimates suggest over 200 prisoners, including several members of the Coalition Council." Jin Woo studied the map thoughtfully. "We need to do both. Hit their supply lines, rescue the prisoners, and gather intelligence on their command structure. Multiple operations running simultaneously. Keep them off balance." Hyejin nodded. "Dong Hyun, you take a special operations team to Keltar. Extract those prisoners. Subin, coordinate fleet operations against their supply convoys. Jin Woo, you command the main battle fleet. I want the Vrakith to feel pressure from every direction. Make them react to us instead of us reacting to them." 2 days later, Strike Commander Dong Hyun and his team dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Keltar system. His team consisted of 12 operators, the best humanity had to offer. Demolitions expert Kitai, communications specialist Sora, and 10 others who had volunteered for what was essentially a suicide mission. The Vrakith prison world was heavily defended. Orbital platforms, patrol ships, and ground installations covered every approach. Dong Hyun studied the defenses from their stealth ship and smiled grimly. Heavy defenses usually meant lazy security. People who relied on walls and weapons often forgot to watch for shadows. "We go in quiet," he said to his team. "No shooting unless absolutely necessary. Get in, find the prisoners, get out. Simple." Kaite laughed softly. "Nothing is ever simple." They inserted via drop pods, small capsules that looked like space debris on scanners. The pods landed in a remote area far from the prison complex. The team moved through the alien landscape at night, using terrain and darkness to stay hidden. Sora hacked into the local communication networks, feeding the team real-time information on guard patrols. It took them 6 hours to reach the prison complex. The facility was massive, a fortress of metal and stone built into the side of a mountain. Dong Hyun signaled for his team to hold position while he surveyed the entrances. Heavy guards at the main gates, automated defenses on the walls, sensor grids covering the approaches. The ventilation system, Sora whispered, pointing to a series of large ducts on the side of the building. It connects to the lower levels where prisoners are held. They infiltrated through the ducts, moving slowly and silently. Inside the facility, they encountered their first guards. Dong Hyun used hand signals. His team moved like ghosts. Knives flashed in the darkness. Guards fell without making a sound. They were past the first checkpoint before anyone knew they were there. The prisoners were held in cells carved into solid rock. Dong Hyun's team moved from cell to cell, quietly opening locks and freeing captives. The coalition prisoners were in terrible condition. Many were injured or sick. All were terrified. "We are here to rescue you," Dong Hyun whispered to them. "Stay quiet. Do what we say. We will get you out." One of the prisoners grabbed his arm. It was Vestic, a member of the Coalition Council. "There are more prisoners in the lower levels," Vestic said urgently. "At least 200 total. The Verkith are conducting experiments on some of them." Dong Hyun felt cold anger settle in his chest. The mission plan called for extracting 20 high-value prisoners. There were 200 people here, many of them civilians. Children. The smart tactical decision was to take the 20 and leave. Get out while they could. He looked at his team. They looked back at him. None of them said anything, but he could see the answer in their eyes. They were all thinking the same thing. "Change of plans," Dong Hyun said. "We are taking everyone." "That is suicide," one of his operators said. "We cannot move 200 prisoners quietly." "Then we do it loudly," Dong Hyun replied. He turned to Kite. "How much explosive do you have?" Kite grinned. "Enough to make them very unhappy." The next hour was chaos. Dong Hyun's team moved through the prison, freeing every prisoner they found. Kite planted explosives on critical infrastructure. Sora hacked the facility's systems, opening all the doors and creating confusion. By the time the Vrakith guards realized what was happening, half the prisoners were already moving toward the extraction point. The Vrakith responded with overwhelming force. Hundreds of warriors converged on the prison. Alarms screamed. Weapons fire echoed through the corridors. Dong Hyun's team fought a running battle, covering the prisoners as they fled. "This is extraction team," Sora called into her radio. "We need immediate pickup. All prisoners, repeat, all prisoners. 200 plus. "Negative," came the response from their ship. "Extraction plan was for 20. We cannot lift that many." "Then bring everything we have," Dong Hyun shouted over the sound of gunfire. "We are not leaving anyone behind." The team fought their way to the surface. Kite detonated his charges, and explosions ripped through the prison complex. Buildings collapsed. Power systems failed. In the confusion, the prisoners ran for the landing zone. Coalition ships appeared in orbit, dropping down through the atmosphere. They had not been part of the original plan, but someone in the fleet had heard the emergency calls and responded. Evacuation shuttles landed under fire, loading prisoners as fast as they could. Dong Hyun's team held the perimeter. They were outnumbered 30-1, but they fought with everything they had. Kite took a blast to the shoulder and kept fighting. Sora was pinned down behind cover, her rifle barrel glowing from sustained fire. They were running out of ammunition. "Last shuttle is loading now," one of the pilots called. 30 seconds. "Everyone fall back," Dong Hyun ordered. His team began a fighting withdrawal, covering each other as they moved toward the shuttle. Vrakith warriors pressed closer, sensing victory. Dong Hyun was the last one to reach the shuttle. A Vrakith officer charged at him, roaring. Dong Hyun turned and fired his last rounds. The alien fell, but 2 more took its place. Dong Hyun drew his combat knife. If this was where he died, he would die fighting. Then Vestic appeared, firing a weapon taken from a fallen guard. The blast caught one Vracath in the chest. "Get in the shuttle, Commander," Vestic shouted. "You saved my life. I return the favor." They both made it into the shuttle as it lifted off. Vracath fire hammered against the hull, but the armor held. Within minutes, they were in orbit, jumping to faster-than-light travel. Dong Hyun collapsed in his seat, breathing hard. His team was battered and bleeding, but alive. Around them, 200 rescued prisoners huddled together, crying with relief. Vestic sat down next to Dong Hyun. "Why did you do it?" "Your mission was to extract 20 high-value targets. You risked everything to save civilians who mean nothing to your strategic objectives." Dong Hyun looked at him with tired eyes. "That is where you are wrong. Those civilians mean everything. We do not fight for strategy or objectives. We fight because it is right. Because leaving people behind to die when we could save them is not something humans do. It is not who we are." Meanwhile, Captain Jinwoo commanded the human fleet in a series of hit-and-run attacks on Vracath supply convoys. The Vracath had never faced this kind of warfare. Human ships attacked from unexpected angles, destroyed their targets, and vanished before reinforcements arrived. Supply lines began to fail. Vracath forces on conquered worlds started running out of ammunition and food. Captain Subin analyzed the intelligence gathered from the prison raid. Sora had hacked into the facility's computers before they left, downloading massive amounts of data. Hidden in that data was something incredible: the location of the Vracath Emperor's command station. Subin brought the information to Admiral He Jin. "It is here," she said, pointing to a star system deep in Vracath territory. "The Emperor commands the entire war from a mobile command station. It moves periodically, but we have its current location and schedule." Hyejin studied the data. "This is it. This is how we end the war. We cut off the head of the snake." She assembled her senior officers. "We are going after the Emperor. This is a full assault. Everything we have. If we succeed, we break the Vracath Empire. If we fail, we probably all die. I need volunteers only. No one is ordered to go." Every single officer volunteered. Every single soldier in the human forces volunteered. They knew the odds. They knew it was likely suicide. They went anyway, because that is what humans do. They stand up to impossible odds. They fight for what is right. They protect the weak, even when it means sacrificing themselves. The Vracath Empire thought they were the apex predators of the galaxy. They were about to learn that Earth had created something far more dangerous. Earth had created warriors who would die before they surrendered. Warriors who fought not for conquest, but for justice. The fleet began preparations for the final assault. The entire galaxy watched and waited. Humanity was going to war one last time. And when a death world goes to war for the right reasons, the universe itself holds its breath. The combined human coalition fleet assembled in neutral space. It was the largest military force ever gathered in galactic history. 200 warships, including Earth's entire deep space fleet, thousands of fighters and support craft, 50,000 soldiers from dozens of worlds. But everyone knew that the humans would lead the assault. The humans would pay the highest price. Admiral Hyejin stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking at the fleet arrayed before her. She thought about Earth, about the billions of people who would never know if this mission succeeded or failed until it was already over. She thought about the soldiers who had volunteered, knowing they might not come home. She thought about what it meant to be human. "All ships report ready," her communications officer announced. "Then let us finish this," Hyejin said quietly. "All ships, jump on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." The fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel. When they emerged, they were in the heart of Vracath territory. Dead ahead was the Emperor's command station, a massive fortress 10 kilometers long. It bristled with weapons. Around it, the Vracath home fleet waited. Over 300 enemy ships. "We are outnumbered and outgunned," Captain Jinwoo said from his ship's bridge. "Perfect odds for humans." The battle began instantly. The Vracath fleet surged forward. The human fleet met them head-on. Space filled with weapons fire, explosions, and dying ships. The coalition ships hung back, providing support fire. This was humanity's fight, and they led from the front. Jinwoo commanded his battle group with practiced skill. Human ships moved in coordinated patterns, using tactics the Vracath had never seen. They were outnumbered, but they were faster, more aggressive, and willing to take risks that no coalition force would attempt. One human destroyer rammed a Vracath battleship, sacrificing itself to destroy the larger vessel. The crew had time to evacuate, but 10 did not make it. They died, saving hundreds. On the ground, assault ships, Sergeant Tae Yang prepared his Marines for boarding action. Private Yuna checked medical supplies one last time. Corporal Minho sharpened his combat knife. They had fought together through hell. Now they would finish it together. "Listen up," Tae Yang said to his unit. "The command station is a fortress. We are going to breach it, fight through whatever is inside, and reach the Emperor's throne room. Most of us will not survive. But those who do will have ended a war that has killed millions. If that is how we die, it is a good death." Private Yuna raised her hand. "Sergeant, respectfully, I plan to survive. I have patients waiting for me back at base." The Marines laughed. Even facing impossible odds, humans found humor. It was how they dealt with fear. The assault ships launched from the fleet, racing toward the command station. Defensive fire filled space around them. Ships exploded. But enough made it through. They slammed into the hull of the station and breached the armor. Boarding pods opened, and human Marines poured into the enemy fortress. Tai Yang led his unit through corridors designed for beings twice his height. The Vracath defenders waited in prepared positions. The fighting was brutal and close. Grenades exploded in confined spaces. Rifles roared. Humans and Vracath died by the dozens. "Forward! Always forward!" Tae Yang shouted. His unit pushed deeper into the station. Behind them, other units secured their flanks and established defensive positions. This was coordinated assault on a massive scale. Thousands of humans fighting through the fortress level by level. Yuna's medical team moved with the assault force, treating wounded Marines in the middle of combat. She worked with bullets flying past her head, her hands steady as she injected medicine and sealed wounds. A Vracath warrior rounded a corner and fired at her. The shot missed. Before it could fire again, 3 Marines cut it down. "Thanks," Yuna said, not looking up from her patient. "We protect our medic," one Marine replied. "You protect us." Strike Commander Dong Hyun led his special operations team on a separate mission. Their target was the station's main reactor. If they could overload it, the entire station would be destroyed. It was a suicide mission. Everyone knew it. They went anyway. His team fought through engineering sections, using the station's own layout against the defenders. Sora hacked security systems, opening doors and sealing corridors to control the flow of battle. Kite planted explosives on critical systems. They moved like ghosts, striking fast and disappearing before the enemy could respond. On the main fleet, Captain Subin coordinated the battle from a tactical ship. She fed information to assault teams, redirected fire support, and managed the chaos of combat. The Vracath fleet was breaking apart under the human assault, but they were still fighting. Subin watched the tactical display and made split-second decisions that saved ships and lives. Admiral He Jin commanded the overall battle, her mind working through dozens of variables at once. She was losing ships, too many ships, but they were winning. The Vracath were being pushed back. The command station was being taken level by level. Deep inside the station, Tai Yang's unit finally reached the central section. Before them was a massive door, ornately decorated with symbols of the Vracath Empire. Beyond that door was the Emperor's throne room. "This is it," Tai Yang said. "Beyond this door is everything we came here to stop." The door exploded inward. Dong Hyun's team came through from the other side, their armor scorched and weapons empty. Dong Hyun himself was bleeding from multiple wounds. "The reactor is set," Dong Hyun said. "We have 20 minutes before the station becomes a very large explosion. We need to finish this and evacuate." Together, the 2 units entered the throne room. It was enormous, a chamber built to impress and intimidate. At the far end, sitting on a throne of metal and bone, was the Vracath Emperor. He was massive, even by Vracath standards, wearing ceremonial armor that looked ancient. Around him, his personal guard waited. 50 warriors, the best the Empire had. "So the prey comes before me at last," the Emperor said in perfect English. His translator was sophisticated. "You are human, yes? The Deathworlders who have caused so much trouble. You are smaller than I expected. Weaker. How have you done so much with so little?" Dong Hyun stepped forward. He was wounded, exhausted, and outnumbered, but he stood straight. "We did it because it was right. Because you were killing innocents. Because someone had to stop you." "And you think you can stop me?" the Emperor asked. "I have conquered 100 worlds. I have destroyed species that were stronger than yours. What makes you think you can stand against me?" "Because we already did," Taeyang said. "Your empire is falling. Your fleet is broken. Your fortress is taken. You have already lost. You just have not realized it yet." The Emperor stood slowly. "Then let us see if your courage matches your words. I challenge you to single combat. Vracath tradition. If you win, my empire surrenders. If I win, your species becomes slaves forever." "No," Captain Subin's voice came through their radios. "Do not accept. It is a trap." But Dong Hyun was already walking forward. "I accept." The throne room became a battle arena. The Emperor's guards stood back. This would be decided between two warriors. The Emperor drew a weapon, a massive blade that glowed with energy. Dong Hyun drew his combat knife, a simple piece of steel. They circled each other. The Emperor was larger, stronger, wearing armor that could shrug off most weapons. Dong Hyun was smaller, wounded, armed with only a knife. By any logical measure, he should lose. The Emperor struck first, his blade whistling through the air. Dong Hyun dodged, rolling to the side. He could not block that weapon. He had to avoid it completely. The Emperor struck again and again, each blow powerful enough to cut Dong Hyun in half. Each time, Dong Hyun moved just enough to let the blade pass. "You cannot win by running," the Emperor roared. "I am not running," Dong Hyun said. "I am waiting." The Emperor made a mistake. He put too much power into a strike, and his blade embedded itself in the floor. For 1 second, he was vulnerable. Dong Hyun moved faster than thought. He was inside the Emperor's guard, his knife finding the gaps in the armor. Once, twice, 3 times. The blade struck true. The Emperor roared in pain and anger. He backhanded Dong Hyun, sending him flying across the room. Dong Hyun hit the wall hard. Something broke inside him. But he stood up. Blood ran from his mouth. He could barely breathe. He stood anyway. "How?" the Emperor gasped, looking at his wounds. "You are just one small creature. How do you keep standing?" "Because I am human," Dong Hyun said. "And humans do not quit. We do not surrender. We do not break. You can kill me, but you cannot make me stop fighting." He charged again. The Emperor raised his weapon, but his movements were slower now. Dong Hyun dodged and struck. The knife found the Emperor's throat. The massive alien fell to his knees, then collapsed. The throne room was silent. The Emperor's guards stared in shock. Their leader, the conqueror of worlds, had been killed by a single human armed with only a knife. "Your Emperor is dead," Taeyang said to the guards. "The war is over. You can surrender with honor or die here. Choose." One by one, the guards lowered their weapons. The Vracath Empire had fallen. "Evacuate," Dong Hyun said weakly. "The reactor." They ran. Hundreds of humans raced through the corridors, carrying their wounded, supporting each other. They reached the boarding pods with minutes to spare. The assault ships pulled away from the station as the reactor reached critical mass. The explosion lit up space like a new star. The Emperor's command station, symbol of Vracath power, was gone. With it went the heart of the Empire. The Vracath fleet surrendered within hours. Without their Emperor, without their command structure, they had no will to fight. Admiral Hyejin accepted their surrender personally, with Sergeant Taeyang and Private Yuna standing beside her. "The terms are simple," Hyejin said. No more conquest, no more killing. You return to your own space and leave the coalition worlds alone. In return, we do not hunt you to extinction. We do not destroy your homeworld. The war ends here. The Vracath agreed. They had no choice. 6 months later, the galaxy was at peace. The Vracath kept to their territory. The coalition was rebuilding, and humanity was no longer the primitive species kept at arm's length. They were full members, respected and honored. Sergeant Tae Yang retired from active service and took a position training coalition forces. Private Yuna, now promoted to medical officer, established new protocols that combined human and alien medicine. Captain Jinwoo commanded mixed fleets where humans and aliens served together as equals. Strike Commander Dong Hyun survived his wounds, though he would carry the scars forever. He became an ambassador, teaching others about the human philosophy of protecting the weak. On Earth, a memorial was built. A wall of black stone bearing 8,000 names. The humans who had died defending strangers. The inscription was simple. They asked for no reward. They expected no thanks. They did what humans do. Ambassador Thelrax visited the memorial with Captain Subin. He placed flowers at the base of the wall, a human tradition he had learned. "I do not understand," he said quietly. "Why do humans fight so hard for others? Why risk everything for species you barely know?" Subin smiled. "Because we know what it costs to fight. We know the pain of war. Every human child learns about violence so they understand why peace matters. We are not violent because we are cruel. We are capable of violence because sometimes it is necessary to protect what we love. That is what it means to be from a death world. Earth taught us to be strong, but humanity taught us to be kind." High above Earth, warships patrolled the space lanes. They bore both human and coalition symbols. Inside one ship, young humans and aliens worked side by side, laughing and joking as they performed their duties. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. When darkness comes, when evil threatens the innocent, you want Deathworlders on your side. You want humans. Because humans do not fight for glory or conquest. They fight for each other. They fight for strangers. They fight because it is right. And when Earth's children go to war for the right reasons, the universe itself trembles. Not in fear, but in hope. Because if humanity is willing to fight for you, you are going to be okay. They were Deathworlders. They were warriors. They were heroes. They were human. And they always would be.